I'm Matthew Dank, and this is Service and Beyond podcast, where we talk to Australian military veterans about their service stories and their journeys out of uniform and back to civilian life. Okay, and welcome back to Service and Beyond for 2022. I hope you had a good break, whatever you got up to over Christmas, New Year period. I know for many of us, 2021 did pan out much like the year before, unfortunately, so I do hope you had time to spend some quality time with family and loved ones and reflect on the things that matter in your life and where you're heading in 2022. Mel and I managed a good period away down in Sydney, catching up with her family, and luckily we made it back across without too much border mayhem. We did, however, have to cut short our Melbourne trip, so hoping to get down there, visit friends and family before too long. So in 2022 on Service and Beyond, we changed direction, starting out with a short 3-part series on the Boeing Company and their veterans and veterans working group. The move from defence to defence industry is a well-worn path for many leaving service. With skills obtained in defence, veterans understand the conditions, the mission and the operating environment second to none. Defence industry is increasingly understanding the importance of veterans to their core role and their function, and making available support for transitioning members to find a new role on leaving defence, supporting career growth within companies, and also supporting events to continue the strong links that veterans build to the community during their service careers. So these are some of the reasons I moved across from Air Force into defence industry and the Boeing Company. Looking back at my career with Navy flying Seahawk helicopters off Navy warships and C-17 heavy jet aircraft with Air Force, I really loved aviation. I really loved everything about the hardware, the mission we were supporting. So when it came time for me to leave, it was logical for me to stay around aviation, stay around defence. So I moved across into a C-17 simulator instructor role with Boeing out at the Amberley Air Force Base, where I get to stay around my peers, hang around with the guys and girls I've flown multiple missions with, keep that sense of contribution and of belonging to a cause bigger than myself. So for me, it really was a logical career progression. And from there, I've also had a gateway to learn more about defence business, more about what Boeing does across lots of programs extended far beyond aviation. So this year, I've been fortunate to move into, late last year, I was fortunate to move into a broader management role within the company, where I've continued to learn a lot about defence industry and really about business more broadly. So in this series, we're going to learn a bit about Boeing veterans and the Boeing Veterans Network from 3 different tiers within the Boeing Company. Starting out with Krishell Ennis. Krishell was a Navy Communications Sailor, serving 9 years in the Royal Australian Navy. She left Navy going through a number of roles before landing a position with the defence industry and then moving on to Boeing, working in an Air Battlespace Management program. The second guest is Amy List. Amy is a senior leader within Boeing, a former Air Force engineer and head of Boeing's Veteran Working Group. Amy's also had the uncommon experience of having deployed herself in operations and having been at home while her partner deployed overseas. We'll discuss the nearly 30-person strong Boeing Veterans Working Group, comprised of former Navy, Army and Air Force personnel, and we'll talk about how they're working with the government and other national service organisations to ease the journey across from Defence Force service into meaningful long-term employment. And last in our 3-part series, we're joined by Dr. Brendan Nelson. Brendan's a former senior leader within government as the former Minister of Defence and Leader of the Opposition. He's a strong supporter of Defence Force veterans and serving members, having served for 7 years as the Director of the Australian War Memorial before joining Boeing. Before we begin this episode, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the ongoing Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide that started in November last year with hearings in Brisbane, and now proceeding in Sydney and Canberra this year. Hearings are ongoing, as are public submissions, and I'm acknowledging that this is a very trying time, which will bring back memories and experiences of those who've lost loved ones during and after their service. So I'd like to acknowledge their courageousness and their heart in coming forward and supporting their loved ones and putting themselves on the record so that we can build a better future for serving men and women and for their families. Okay, let's get into the episode. Enjoy the show with former Navy Communications Sailor and now Boeing employee, Krishell Ennis. Well, Krishell Ennis, happy Tuesday and welcome to Service and Beyond. How you been?
Hello, really good. Thanks for having me on.
Very welcome. Looking forward to featuring your story of Navy service, of course, and then the job hunt and life after defence and your way through to the Boeing Company. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, good.
And you're calling from the sunny coast.
I'm on the Sunshine Coast, yes.
And how's that been since the COVID situation rolled out and the work from home opportunities been there for you? Have you enjoyed being up there?
I have actually. I get a little bit of time back for my week without the commute. So, yeah, it's been really good to have the opportunity to work at home. Even though I do miss, going into the office, but now we're getting a bit of that back, which is nice because it's good to see people as well.
Yeah, indeed. And you grew up on the sunny coast, I understand it.
No, I actually grew up in Victoria. I've been here on the Sunshine Coast for about 4 years.
There you go. Yeah, I'm from the Gold Coast, so it's a similar area, similar vibe, and yeah, great to be working from home down here also with about 2 days in the office. So, tell me about Navy career and starting out with the Navy with you.
Yeah, so I joined the Navy when I was 23. Well, I think I was 22 actually, 22. And I joined as a communications information system sailor. And I was with the Navy for about 9 years. And during my time, I was at all different establishments, mainly Victoria, Sydney, and over in Western Australia. And then the ship that I was on the longest was HMAS Success.
And you did around 9 years in Navy in total, was that right?
9 years, yes. Yep.
And how did you find, I guess, the Navy lifestyle and having a young family in the Navy?
Yeah, the Navy lifestyle was different when I first joined because I guess you never know what you're going to get. But I just loved it. Every part of it I actually really loved. I'm a bit of a people person, so there's lots of people and you can't really get away from people. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time. Having a family later on in my career, it started there was a few interesting times there where it was a little bit unpredictable, but it didn't really take away from my love of the service.
Yeah, and I think there's some similarities between my role in aviation down at Navy's only airbase at Albatross and your role on Success. So Success, of course, was the only ship of that class. So people who were posted to Success wouldn't move around to different ships in the same class. So you had some stability, same people, same faces, and same culture.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And they just become part of your family. So it's a bit sad when you have to move on, actually.
No, it is, isn't it? It's a big change, especially when you're so immersed in it. What was your main tempo during your time on Success? So were you mainly in the Asia Pacific? Did you do any trips to the US or across to Europe?
No, yeah, mainly around Indonesia, Asia. Plenty of trips to Singapore. That almost become a second home at the end of it. And quite a lot up and down the Australian coast.
Yeah, Magic, it's funny, the tempo's changed quite a lot. In recent years, it was obviously in our time a lot of Middle Eastern trips and now much more focus in the region where you spent a lot of your time.
Yeah, exactly.
And what brought you to the decision to, consider your future outside of the Navy when that time came?
Yeah, so I think being in that long, I kind of felt like I had succeeded in the things that I thought that I'd wanted to throughout my career. And I thought, do I want to push further or what am I going to do next? And then also because I was due to go to sea. So by the time I'd come to my 9 years, I had my second son. And it was then that I knew that I had to go back to sea. So leaving my second son at home with my husband was a bit of a, is this going to be the right thing to do? And my husband was actually pretty unsupportive of the idea, where he was like, I don't think I can do two. One boy at home with me was fine, but two is a little bit much. So there was a little bit of conversation behind that before, I made that decision.
And how did that go, having that conversation with Navy, talking about, young family, you've got another child on the way, not sure if the sea lifestyle works for you? How did that conversation play out?
It's actually not an easy conversation to have because, Navy and your career should be priority number one. And I felt like in that time there was a little bit of division between men and women. So if, when it come to progression of your career, promotions and things like that, it was sort of like you had to choose between promotion and progression or a family. So when you did have a family, it sort of stunted your growth a little bit. That conversation was sort of a bit hard to say, hey, I don't actually want to go to sea for a while. And this is a little while ago, so maybe things have changed, but for me, that's what it was like, yeah.
And big move from obviously a young person, 9 years in uniform, but still quite young, moving outside of what you're known for the majority of your adult life. How did that go for you for your first few steps outside of defence?
It was actually really, really hard. I didn't think that it would be so difficult. I thought that I could just, flow into life. And I don't think I knew how much the service had impacted me as a person. I honestly had no idea until I started the transition process. And I thought, oh, hang on a second. So how do I translate everything that I've done for the last 9 years into a position where I can now get a job? And I struggled with the way you do translate it in words. So I went and spoke to somebody to do up a resume for me, and I gave her all the dump of my certificates and all the things that I'd done in the Navy. And I said, here you go, can you translate that for me? And she said, sure. It was like, I don't know, $300 or $400 or something like that. But that was a good start. But there wasn't really any transition plan. It was just sort of, here's your little brochure of what you should do, and off you go. So I had to rely on other people's experiences to ask them, so you did the same job as me. What job did you go for, and what did you apply for, and what am I eligible for? So it was all that information gathering that I was trying to do in the lead up to me going, because I thought, I don't want to leave and not have a job to go to. So, it was actually really, really difficult.
So, looking at the path of those who've left before you was an obvious way to chart out some options after leaving Navy. What about options relating to your job role in Navy? You were a communications and information sailor, so an IT basis there. Did you look at similar roles outside of defence? I
did, but the hard thing is, although I think we did get a couple of certificates, we were IT based, but IT mainly on the ship is what we were allowed to touch, and we had contractors in the defence that actually did the manual work. So even though I was qualified to do IT work, I didn't actually have a great experience behind it. So I was pretty much starting as a freshie, so I thought, what sort of IT work can I do that is really basic, pretty much.
So where did you find yourself in the first year after Navy?
Yeah, so after in the first year, I did a little bit of job jumping, really not knowing where to land my feet, I guess, and not sort of understanding what skills I had that could transfer over. And after I'd been to a couple of different jobs that were not great, I ended up working with Unisys Australia that had the contract for defence sites. And I landed at HMAS, I landed at RAF Base Pierce over in Western Australia, working for Unisys. And that was pretty much the beginning of me in IT physically, I guess, if you will. So I had all the fundamentals and everything behind me, but to actually be given the chance to do the role, it was excellent to work for them.
And that was a bit of a turning point for you. But prior to landing that role, you actually applied for a lot of other roles and had quite a few issues getting interviews even.
Oh, I did. I had a 6-month role with Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in the city, but not still having a young baby. There was some logistic issues with me trying to get to work. And then, so I wanted something a bit closer to home. And on the Sunshine Coast, and it's still the same now, it's really, really difficult to get any sort of work. And I think I applied for over 200 jobs, as in at Aldi, as a meter reader, you name it, I applied for it, and I got not even an interview. So I honestly, I didn't know what to do. So we left the Sunshine Coast to go over to Western Australia, and that's where I got this job with Unisys, and I was sort of a bit apprehensive, and I thought, have I got the skills? And they were mostly interested in my security clearance, and they said, we can teach you anything. You've got what we need, and come on you come. So I literally had a coffee with the manager, and he's like, okay, you can start whenever. So, yeah, it was good.
And that sounds like a real step up and a real morale boost for you after Navy.
Oh, it definitely was. And it was sort of from that point that I was now working back within defence that I sort of saw all the branches to the tree, and I started seeing, but not know what you don't know. So I just didn't know that these pathways existed. So, yeah, it took that bit of time to go, there is quite a few jobs out there that I can actually get. You just have to know where to look.
And how did you find it to jump the fence, so to speak? You were obviously previously CIS, Communications Information Sailor on Navy, and now you're working for Unisys. So in a similar tech area, really, but on the other side of the relationship, on the industry side. How was it looking back at your military colleagues and understanding what it was like working on the Unisys side?
Yeah, it was funny, and I probably said this story too many times, but I used to sit where you do, and how annoying is it that you can't move the equipment around? They'd be like, yes, I know. So it was good, but it was also good to flip the coin because I was mindful of the position that they were in. And, I wouldn't treat them as if they didn't know, because they were fully capable of doing some of the things that I was doing. So, understanding that as well. I think it helped just, build the communication between me and the customer.
Yeah, and you think you had more trust and more responsibility placed in you because you were former Navy?
Yes, definitely. I feel like people totally open up more to you being ex-defence than some of my colleagues, yeah.
So after a couple of years there, that was enough, Perth, for you. You decided to come back to the East Coast.
Yes. So after a couple of years of Western Australia, for the second time, we decided to move back over because most of our family are over here in Queensland. We made the move over.
And back to sunny Queensland. Where did you start things out there?
So back to sunny Queensland. When I was leaving Unisys, they were happy to transfer me, and I did have a position to go to Edinogra. But knowing that I was going to the Sunshine Coast, I just didn't want to have that commute again. Not with the boys being at a new school and all of that. I sort of had to prioritise them. So I got a job with Queensland Health at the Sunshine Coast University Hospital as IT support. And they were actually a great place to work for as well. I was quite lucky with them. I felt, because I had learned so many skills from being with Unisys for that 2.5 years, that I had so much more to give. So going into the hospital setting, although it was challenging because obviously there's medical equipment, there's a larger variety of things. So I had a lot to learn, but I had the confidence to go in and do majority of the work.
And culturally, that was different again. You'd been in Navy, now you'd been in Unisys on the industry side, on the corporate side of defence, and now you're with government. How was that culture shift?
That, to be honest, was a bit of a shock because everyone there is quite... not everyone comes to work happy, I guess is a nice way to put it. There was a lot of people that were not getting the progression that they wanted because there's only so many limited spaces. There is only so much room for improvement and movement, and some people would just get in that one position and they would sit there and be happy to be in that position, but, grumpy about it at the same time for the rest of their lives. So it was kind of, although I did love my position there and the people that I worked for, I felt a little bit disheartened because I thought, well, what happens next then? So now that I've got to this part of, my career here with you, what happens next? And there was no real career progression or direction. It was sort of like, well, if this person leaves or this person moves or if this person, then you could do X, Y, and Z. So that being me, it just wasn't clear enough. So I started branching out and thought, oh, where else can I work?
And that, of course, led you to Boeing.
Yes, and then I saw this position with Boeing and I applied for that. And, yeah, obviously got the position and here I am.
So that was 4 companies in, what's that, just a bit under 10 years. And the Boeing Culture, was that similar to Unisys? How did you find coming across to a huge company and obviously the biggest aerospace company in the globe, that's Boeing?
Yes, yeah. Boeing was not real. I think Boeing is actually really different to Unisys as well. I don't know if it's the difference of the percentage of ex-military in Boeing, Unisys was a lot of mixed. It was there was quite a lot of civilians, if you like. So coming to Boeing, it was again another cultural change where I sort of didn't know what to expect. I had Unisys and the Queensland Health to sort of compare it to, but I didn't know what it was really going to be like. But yeah, as soon as I come, the culture of Boeing is honestly, I liken it a lot to the military because everyone is so caring and giving and, it's all about the team and everyone's there to support one another. There's laughter and there's happiness and people are happy to come to work. And I found that really refreshing to come to work and there's laughter and people are like, oh, good morning, rather than not even making eye contact because they just don't like their life.
It's funny, the amount that's infectious, the sort of culture and the emotions in a workplace are hugely infectious.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Sometimes it just takes one person to change the morale, from positive to negative. It just depends what it is. And, even you can be as upbeat as you are as a person, but if you're surrounded by people that are doom and gloom and don't like what they do and, it's soon enough it starts to affect you as a person and you go, hang on, this isn't me. What's happening here?
Yeah, indeed. So true, isn't it? It's something that often, isn't acknowledged until you're there and you're in that place for a period of time and you cotton onto the fact that it is hard to repel and to resist that sort of culture if that's not a good fit for your personality.
Yeah, that's right. And if you don't recognise, there'll definitely be someone in your circle that'll go, hang on, there's something not right with you.
Yeah, and connect the dots. That was me for most of my 20s, I think, before people would point out, hey, what's going on here, Matt? And I'd do the hard yards and do the thinking and connect the dots.
Yeah.
So, Krishell, you came on, in fact, to one of the Boeing project teams to Wakulda, which is the Air Battlespace Management system. So that culture in particular you enjoyed?
Yes, I've only been with Wakulda since I've been with Boeing, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but the way that we work as a team, I think is, and my little team in particularly, is excellent. I couldn't be any more lucky, I guess, with the people that I work with to be in such a supportive group of people.
And that's an important project for Defence, obviously, an Air Battlespace Management system about, well, previously air defence for Air Force, but really it's about air defence for the entire nation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's a massive project and it's a project that you actually feel proud. So when people ask me what I do, I say so with hesitation because it's sort of a bit difficult to explain to someone on the outside looking in. But I'm actually really proud of what I do and the company I work for and the project that I work for. I take a lot of pride in saying, oh, yes, this is what I do.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask really, because you've gone from Navy to a defence IT company on the corporate side, then onto government, now back to a company that's making platforms and systems for the defence of the nation. Is that a real similar feeling to what you experienced in the Navy in terms of the purpose and your role you see in contributing to the defence of the country and the national interest?
Yeah, absolutely. You feel that you do have a purpose. You feel you can see the overall goal, and you know that you're contributing to the country that we love so much. So, yeah, being with the defence and fighting for the country, but then also now being with Boeing, working towards what the military use is it's a really great feeling.
And we talked about briefly before the work from home arrangement, a couple of days in the office per week and the rest at home. Obviously, that's different from your time in Navy and maybe for other companies also. How does that work with your personal routine? Is that something that's preferred by you that really gels and works for you and your family?
Yeah, 100%. I feel really, as much as there hasn't been some great things about COVID, but this for me is a huge positive. I've got back probably 20 hours in travel. So working from home and having the flexibility of being able to do my job at home is, it's really great. And probably, to be honest, it'd be a little bit hard to go back to a full-time work from the office arrangement for me, just because I realise now what it is, how much time I wasted, I guess, in travel, just in the commute to and from the office.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common across a lot of workplaces. Across my wife's business, she's in insurance in the city, and very similar approach. I think people are more productive over lesser time, so it really is a good outcome.
Yeah, and I feel you can be a great worker and a great parent or person at home as well. Like you sort of can balance the two of them, where before maybe one or the other was lacking.
Yeah, it really is good getting rid of that commute and obviously getting ready for work. It's just amazing how many hours you do free up in your day and how much more flexibility there is for family.
Yeah, sure.
So, Krishell, now you're in Boeing. You've had the experience of going through different employers, different parts of the country, and coming back. What would your thoughts be toward people who are leaving defence now about choosing roles either outside or in defence industry? You've worked for 2 defence companies. What are your thoughts about big employers in industry like Boeing?
I would say, first of all, I would say to someone that is transitioning out of military to reach out to every platform, because there is so much support out there for ex-military. There's so many different organisations that are there to help you with transitioning, mental health, exercise, community groups. There's so many different branches that you can reach out into. So I think any person that's transitioning, if they could just, put themselves out there. LinkedIn is actually a great platform, I think, to find different companies and, who connects to the defence, and know that your skill is transferable at some way. Like, everyone is useful, and, don't undersell yourself. I think, we get caught up in the oh no, I can't do that or whatever. But I think, just put yourself out there and go for it. And coming across to somewhere where Boeing is just, there's so many different opportunities within our company that you'd be silly not to apply.
And I like what you said before around your role with the Queensland government and thinking about the promotion culture within the organisation and whether that was a good fit for you. A lot of people would just put up with that, or they would resign themselves to the situation they're in. I've seen it, in defence and other places. Yeah. What are the big drivers there for you about finding that right cultural fit, or what sort of drivers do you think are important for finding that?
Yeah, I think for me personally, and I know everybody's different, but I've never been a person that's happy to just stand still and go, okay, this is just what you're going to do forever, and there's no progression. And I think because I loved my time in the military so much, I wanted to try and replicate that, if that makes sense. So I was looking for the camaraderie. I was looking for the progression. I was looking for, somewhere that can offer you a way to upskill yourself constantly. And that is sort of when I come to Boeing, I went, I can do all of those things. So yeah, they were the things that I'm like, okay, I can stay with Boeing for the next however many years I want to and still get all of my needs met.
So going back to your decision to leave Navy, you obviously had a young child there, and you were dealing with some depression and bringing that up with the health system within Navy. How was that experience?
Yeah, that was quite difficult. I think I went through a little bit of time where I probably didn't want to admit that I did have any mental health issues. And I found it really hard. So I did go to medical. I did get some appointments, with the psychologist, which was amazing. But it was, I guess, I felt a little bit ashamed that I had to go and speak to my divisional chain about my ability to be able to progress my career or go back to sea. Having only a young son and having mental health issues was a huge thing. So I sort of, because I felt ashamed, it took a long time for me to come up to my divisional staff and say, hey, this is what's going on. Not because they weren't approachable, but it was just, my own thoughts around, how do I bring this topic up, I guess, was the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of medical and psychological support available during our time in service and in uniform. Do you think that was really reflected by the culture more broadly?
I feel like all mental health issues were kind of taboo. I feel like no one really spoke about them at all. Like it wasn't really it was almost like you hid that you went to the psychologist, and there was no really open discussion about it.
Yeah, I think I'm going back to a time it would have been 2008 when I had a friend of mine graduate pilot's course who was suffering depression, and he was on antidepressant medication, which meant he couldn't fly, of course. So that's where it really came out for him. But it was the exact same experience. It's you go to the medical system and it'll be dealt with in a professional fashion, but it's culturally taboo and we don't talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I know, like in the workplace now and in other places, I think it's becoming more of an open forum. Like with Mental Health Week, with everyone being quite open with it, is it's great for people. So now I go, I've got my appointment with my psychologist, where before I would never ever say that I saw a psychologist because I would be, what are people going to think of me? But now, I think it's important that we change our language and we start to say, just the same as I'd say, I've got to go to my dentist. You shouldn't have that shame about looking after your own mental health, because it is a good thing to do.
I think you're on the money 100%, especially if you look at how trying the job interference can be. You're away from family, even your own children, for protracted periods, under huge amounts of stress at times. So I think it needs to be the norm. It needs to be part of the everyday and the weekly occurrence. Yeah.
And so when a person somebody comes to you, if you're the manager or something, people, how to deal with that as well. So when I come up to my divisional staff to say, hey, this is what's happening with me, and I actually had a bit of a teary because all the emotions come out because I was not feeling great about telling them this information. They were a little bit shocked and a little bit taken back and didn't know, I guess, how to answer and what to say to console me, or, there wasn't really that education, I guess, with them and mental health and the position that they took within, the business to really deal with someone like me that comes forward with something so huge.
I think that's really important to point out, that the way leaders, whether they're officers or not, reflect and give time and give good guidance to those people who are struggling really has a big impact on them in service and when they move out. I know you brought up your concerns and your reason for leaving around depression and having a second child, and you were really told, look, we can have you out the door as quick as you want. That was the sort of reception you got.
Exactly. It was, no problem. We can have you gone in 6 weeks. And I thought, oh gosh, that's a bit quick. Okay, how am I going to sort my life out in 6 weeks? And to me, it sort of felt like at that moment that I was actually just a number, and I'd never ever felt that in my whole military career. It was just at the end where I was just, disposable, I guess. Like, okay, well, you're gone because you're no good to us, and off you go. So that was sort of hard to deal with as well, because I thought there'd be a little bit more other options. How about we sit down and we talk about your options? Can we do X, Y, Z? Let's get you into a good, healthy mental state before we send you off to transition and have to deal with all the other things you've got to deal with.
And do you think those leaders and staff you were dealing with realise the impact that could have? If your last memory of service is when you're told, thanks for coming, you could be out in 6 weeks, do you think people realise the effect that can have on people after they leave as a lasting memory?
I don't think so. I don't think that they fully understood and I hope there's more education around it now, and I really hope that the transition out is much better, because it can be quite damaging. Those certain words that you do say in those days leading up to you leaving could be very damaging.
Yeah, well, I think we recruit people to do the most noble and humble of roles, to serve the nation and deploy in war zones if needed. And I think it's a shame sometimes that it is that transactional approach at the end of service rather than a really, I guess, well-deserved send-off and well-deserved departure from service, regardless of what you've done in your career and regardless of where you've been, just giving the person their due and their respect and the dignity.
Absolutely. And when you think about all the ceremonies that you do coming into the service, you stand up and you feel so proud, and you're welcomed by all these different people and places, and then and you sort of feel that that's how you should end it as well, standing up and being proud and being acknowledged for your time, not just, all right, thanks very much, here's your folder of your certificates and enjoy your life.
Krishell, any other thoughts on people approaching the transition decision? So it's a difficult process, enormous change. A lot of people benchmark themselves on what colleagues have done who've just left service. Any thoughts on how to approach that decision, noting what you've experienced over your time out of defence?
I kind of think to make the decision, make an educated decision, I guess. If you're ready to transition and you know that it's the best for you as a person, then speak to all the relevant parties within defence first and really make sure that, yes, this is what I want to do. Perhaps even, start the transition a little bit out from when you want to get out, to get your skill set up, to translate it all over, to just give yourself the best chance to step out on the best foot, I think. Yeah.
Great advice indeed, I think. So, Krishell, your time in Navy, what was your proudest moment and your biggest takeaways from your time in Navy?
Oh, gosh, so many. The proudest moment, probably the crossing the line ceremony was pretty amazing. It was a lot of fun. So I was, proud to be on a ship that I loved and traveling around. Travel is another side hobby of mine. So, that was a big thing.
I know my Air Force brethren never really did get the crossing the line ceremony. We'd fly over it repeatedly in the C-17 around the world, but knowing the Navy made such a big ceremony of it, we always used to crack up the Air Force guys. It was quite a good chat.
I can imagine. It's a heap of fun. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It is. And where would you see, if we fast forward a few years into the future, let's say we go forward 5 years or so, where would you see yourself being then, both personally and in a professional sense?
Personally, I would say that I'll still be on the Sunshine Coast. It's not a place I'm going to leave anytime soon. And professionally, I would say that I'll still be with Boeing and trying to climb up that ladder of success. And really I really enjoy the working veterans group, working alongside that, and probably getting a little bit more involved with the veterans part of the business is one of my big passions. So, yeah, I reckon I'll land somewhere around there in, the years to come.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time and being very
no
forthright,
worries.
being very honest. You've had a journey yourself through service, and then through a couple of roles back to the Boeing company. So thanks for your journey and your service to the nation.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me on.
So join us again on Monday next week to hear from Amy List, former Air Force engineer, now senior leader with the Boeing company and head of the Boeing Veterans Working Group, and hear her story and also how companies like Boeing are assisting members stepping out of service, moving into meaningful long-term career paths in defence industry. Look forward to speaking with you then.